Wang Chung, I know you might think it's too early to talk about the weekend, but a weekend like none throughout the year coming up. New Year's Eve, and we always on Friday nights have a 3-hour phone-in, 6 to 9 p.m., music back in the day called Flashback Friday Night, where you can start your weekend early. Mike Barrett in, as we mentioned, with an edition of A Good Policies with Barrett Insurance. Hi, Mike.
Hey, good morning. You know, I got to tell you, I hate Flashback Friday.
Why?
With an absolute passion.
Bring you back to the days?
No. So when you grow anything in your lifetime, if it becomes a flashback, means you're old. So the music on Flashback Friday is music that I listen to in the here and now. You know what I mean? So,
right. So when somebody says, what was your graduation song? And I say Van Halen Jump.
Natalie Merchant.
Who was here first?
10,000 Maniacs was mine. So.
Who was here first, Mount Pisgah or Jeff?
Definitely Jeff.
So Mike was in here as we did our news headlines. By the way, great to have you in, by the way. The drive from St. Jay was?
Not bad. Not bad. If you drive with care, you're fine.
So Mike heard us read the news headlines here, and he goes, hey, you know what? I got a good idea for our chat today. Let's scrap what we were going to originally talk about, because in our news coming up here at 9 o'clock, we're going to talk about two vehicles that hit head-on Crapo Hill Road in St. Johnsbury. Now, we're not talking about who was in it. We're just talking about the incident.
Yeah.
Because, obviously, they had to file or will have to file an insurance claim, right?
Absolutely.
So what did you say?
Yeah, well, let me throw the disclosure out. I don't know who was in that accident. I have no knowledge of anything. I saw the headline. I heard the headline. I thought, man, that might be interesting. Just to kind of like an onion, break it down and tear off the pieces and the layers and give you an idea of how that's going to work. So let's say that was you in one car and me in the other, for the sake of this discussion.
All right.
So we're on Crapo Hill Road, and maybe I'm a little further to the left on the road, and we hit head on, and the same incident occurs, and there's injury to a passenger or injury to you. One of the first steps there is, you're obviously going to have to, it's an accident on the road with airbag deployment and injury. So absolutely, you're going to want to call police. No doubt about it. So you got to call the police. You want to, in this case, probably get the vehicles positioned in a way that makes the road still safe for travel. There are going to be types of accidents that occur that you can't do that. I understand that. But in situations where you can, which this may have been a situation where you could not because of the airbag deployment and everything else, but try to get the vehicles in a safe position. If not, try to maintain a safe position for yourself. Another thing to think about, do not admit fault. Do not go to the other party and say, I'm so sorry. It's just not a good idea because as things start to become more disclosed as through the situation, you may find it wasn't necessarily just your fault. You may find it was the other party's fault to some degree as well. Now, an accident on Crapo Hill Road where only the trees and the bears and the deer saw it and nobody else, the witnesses are the parties. And so they're going to be biased, of course. So you're going to want to file an insurance claim not only on your insurance, but on their insurance. So each party should exchange insurance cards and insurance information, contact information. And it's very simple to do. Make sure you get their name, address, phone number, and exchange that information. Call your respective companies, file the claim, tell them what happened. That's part of the process. So as very common is that when you call in the claim, sometimes they'll right up front get statements from you, but sometimes you just get enough information in for the claim to be filed. It gets triaged to a claims adjuster, an adjuster gets assigned to it, then that adjuster will reach out to you and they'll look for a statement. So they'll go, so Jeff, tell us what happened. And you're going to go, look, I was driving down Crapo Hill Road and there was a car that was a little over the center and I couldn't avoid it because of the snowbanks and we hit, and they're going to call me and Mike, tell us what happened. And they say, well, this person ran into me. My story could be completely different, and that's a he said, she said situation most every time, unless the police respond or there's non-biased witnesses.
So then let me guess then the next step. Now, folks, I know this sounds like an accident reporting 101, but not everybody has experienced
right.
that.
If you've never had an accident, this is news.
So the next step, all right, after you've gotten the information, well, first off, call the police, made sure the vehicles could be moved. If not, get yourself out of the roadway.
Right.
Then I'm going to assume the police will be contacted by one or both insurance companies. Or the report, yes, no?
You want to call the police yourself. So the police will come, and then the police will most likely have a police report, which then the insurance companies will reach out to either the department or the responding officer to obtain that report to get more insight into what happened. So in a situation like this, where it really is a he said, she said, and maybe one person was over the center, maybe not, but there's no center line. So there's a lot of ambiguity here. So you may find that both parties share some level of at-fault responsibility. So they may both see partial claims paid out of both of their insurance. This is very much an open-ended discussion where it can change and not be at all close. But, you may find that you have collision coverage in your policy, your collision will pay, and collision for the other person will pay, or maybe their liability will respond to each other. So it's very open-ended there. But then when it comes to the injuries of those in the vehicle, so say I have a friend of mine, not a wife, not a spouse, not a child, not a relative,
Buddy
just a friend.
Joe from work.
There you go. So he was with me, and he's hurt. He has sustained some injuries in the accident. One of the first levels of coverage for Joe will be the medical payments coverage that I have on my policy. Now, remember, medical payments coverage is not required. So some people may not even have it. Some people may carry a low amount. But remember, from $1,000 to up to $100,000 is the amount that most people can choose. And whatever that limit is a per person maximum payment for medical injury. So Joe suffers an injury. My auto insurance has $10,000 medical payments. He would have up to $10,000 for any immediate medical attention. Say my dog is in the car. My policy would give up to $500 for Charlie to immediately be handled and have medical attention. So there's different facets of here that are going to come in. But the biggest, and it does not matter whose fault it is for those medical payments to be distributed to occupants in your vehicle. So the liability is going to be the big gray area, and whether you have collision or not may impact how this claim plays out for you if there is a shared responsibility that comes back in the end.
Okay, so you just mentioned the fact that Joe and Charlie were in your vehicle, and they will get paid from your insurance company.
Yes.
And then
I would too if I was injured.
Right. Well, then the determination would be made as to who was at fault of the accident. Mm-hmm. And if I can remember some of our older chats, if it is found that you're not at fault, your insurance company will then go after their insurance company to get those medical payments paid by them. Am I right?
I have a little bit of a tear coming down my eye right now. I'm so proud of you, Jeff. What you're describing is what's called subrogation. So if it came to a point where there needed to be, and they may not subrogate against medical payments unless they're really significant, but it's very common that situations happen where your insurance company's paying out for damage to your vehicle or injury to you, finding out the other party's totally at fault, and they'll go after that person's liability. Now, remember, liability is the key factor in this accident because liability covers liability for bodily injury and property damage. So if you were held responsible solely, the damage and the injury to that other vehicle and the occupants within that vehicle are going to come from the liability components of your policy. So there's a lot of play here. That could be an onion that becomes the layers come off for a period of time for discovery, but hopefully everybody's going to be okay. Hopefully it will be resolved in a timely manner, and everyone should be able to move on.
So just as so our listeners understand, this isn't how this particular accident is going to play out.
Right.
It was just something that sparked
general
the conversation.
discussion. And there's differences here. There's so many things we don't know. So It's all the unknowns that are our disclaimer here this morning. But I thought, what a great way to give kind of some insight as to if you are involved in an accident, some of the basic 101s that you may want to know about through the process. Because, there's times where getting a statement from one of the drivers can take a really long time. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, the insurance company, whether yours or theirs, calling that person. If that person becomes increasingly difficult to get a hold of, that is going to delay the process. Weeks can go by before statements are made, and that's the holdup. So you have to be responsive to these phone calls and to these inquiries and do your part as the insured on both parts to make sure this goes through timely.
And the most important thing to do on your part is get coverage. So if folks have more questions, want to swap their coverage, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. Give us a call, 748-5224. You can find us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency. It is our sincere hope that everybody had a very Merry Christmas, and we wish everybody, including you, Jeff, a very happy and prosperous 2022. Let's hope it's 2022 and not 2020.
Times two. Yes. All right. Hey, thanks for putting me in that list, man. I was going to say, and the happiest of New Year's to you and the family, too. We look forward to another year of good policies.
Oh, we'll do great policies if you want. That's fine.
Oh, they're all great. I learn something every Tuesday morning.
Obviously.
Taylor Swift up next on